How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to another Iron Faith Wrestling Instructional. This is a special video for you heavyweights or guys with bad knees, don't want to hit your knees. Today we're going to be going over the high single. I think it's one of the best takedowns out there, very low risk, so let's get right into it. A lot of people think of the high single as a heavyweight move, and I definitely thought about that when I was competing, but now that I'm a coach and I don't really feel like hitting the mat a lot of times, I've realized it's a great technique for any size wrestler, especially if your opponent wrestles a little high in their stance. So if you're wrestling an opponent who's standing up a little bit more than usual, this technique is perfect. The first thing I want to go over is the fundamentals of the high single and what position we want to be in. So normally when I'm wrestling, I do a high single on the leg that's forward because it's closer. All I'm going to do is I have to drop below his head, take a big step in, and lock my hands behind the knee. I lock in a gable grip like this, and I pull the leg into me as I drive into him. So step one, I lower my level and take a big step in just like this. My hands lock behind the knee. My head hits him in the chest as I drive into him and pull the leg into me. One thing that's super important is your head position. The biggest problem when people do high singles is they shoot with their head down, similar to like this, and they get stuck underneath in this position, and it's very difficult to score. If you keep your head position up, it's not very dangerous. So here's what I mean. If I shoot, my head position's up and he steps his leg back, step your leg backwards, boom, not a big deal. I'm not trapped underneath of him. But if my head is down in between his legs, it's not a good position to be in. So I'm here, I'm just gonna drop below his head level and step in at the same time. Hands locked behind the knee. My head's going up into his chest, and I'm pulling the leg into my chest as I'm bringing my head into his chest. So my head's pushing into his chest, I'm pulling the leg up into my chest, in between my legs. As I get here, I want to take my elbow and go elbow deep. Very, very important. When I have a single leg, I don't want the grip, I don't want the leg to be on my grip. So come over here a little bit more. It doesn't really matter how I grab, I don't want the weight of the leg to be on my grip. I want my back elbow to be deep and the weight to be on my elbow joint. That's very, very important. So again, in my stance, I'm gonna get in close enough. I'm gonna take a big step in, lower my level, lock behind his knee, pull in as I drive into him. So I'm here and I go there. And then look at that technique I do there. I drop my elbow deep and I turn my hips a little bit like this. I'm almost shelving the leg on this, or shelving his leg on my forward leg like that. Elbow deep, hands locked tight, head up tall. Some people show to snatch the leg and go backwards. I'm very much against walking backwards when you have a leg. So this is what I mean. Some people show this where they step in, they grab the leg and they pull it into you this way and walk backwards. The problem is when you have a leg in the air and you walk backwards, the weight comes into you. So if I have a leg and I'm walking backwards, the leg comes, it's really, really heavy and it's hard to hold. But if I drive into him continuously, the weight shifts onto the opposite leg and the leg becomes very light and easy to bring up into my armpit. So I'll show you what I mean real quick. So I'm here. Big step in. I might even grab with one hand first. That's not the biggest deal. But quickly I'm locking my hands. I'm gonna continue to drive into him as I shelf it up into my armpit. I like the shoelaces to be right in the armpit as well. Now I am gonna go over, in addition to a single, a high single, a head outside high single. There's a little bit difference in your head positioning, obviously. So I'll show you what it looks like kind of from this angle. A head outside high single is just a high single with your head on the outside here, like this, okay? Now with this position, my head's gonna be more up into his arm, like up into his upper back, like this. And my hand positioning, sometimes I'll go elbow deep if I have to, like I'll slide back and go to the single leg finish. But a lot of times I'm looking for punching this elbow deep and going double. So I'm gonna go over kind of both of those options, either single where your head goes in the chest or head outside single. I wanna move on to some setups for these shots. So let's first focus on the single where my head is in the inside, and then we'll work the head outside single after. Now, my favorite setup is just from the open. So I like to be here. I like to make sure I'm close enough, so I always post on the person, post on their head. Now I know I'm close enough, and I just use fakes and just attack that leg when I see the opening. So I'm moving around here. I might fake, get him to move, fake. Now when I see that opening and I see him, normally when he stops reacting. So if I fake and he does not down block, I know next time when I go, I can grab that leg with no resistance. So I take a big step in, boom, circle back in bounds if I need to, big lift, little trip there. Now, I don't know if it's illegal to step on the foot, but sometimes, you know, we'll say it's by accident. I'll take a big step in right on that foot. Because when I drive into his chest, the weight comes off and I can pick it up. Make sure you can't step backwards. So again, that's my favorite one. It's just motion from the open and snatching that leg just like this, bringing it up, trip, covering around the waist. If you notice, I never back up when I have the single. I either drive in or I circle. So I'm really not gonna back up here. If I need to get the person back in bounds, I'm gonna try to just circle forwards, change directions on them, keep lifting up, cover on top. I personally like this one the most because it's not expected. A lot of times if you go, you know, I'll show you another setup, the underhook. So if you go the route of tie-ups, so if I get to look at underhook position, they're very aware that a high single can be there. So they're much more defensive. All right, I still like hitting high singles from underhooks and Russians, but they're more prepared. From the open, they do not expect you to hit a high single. They expect you to hit low single, blast double, the common shots you would hit from the open. So let me go over the underhook though, so I'll work through a couple different setups. I'm gonna get to my underhook, right leg's forward, I post with my back hand, club with my lead hand, and dig my underhook. Hand flat on the back. Now from here, I like shuffling hip to hip, so my right leg's forward, I almost switch lead legs and circle hip to hip. Once I'm hip to hip, I'm gonna punch this arm straight across his back to put weight onto his opposite foot. So I wanna make this foot light. So when I'm here, I'm going to take a big step in, punch, and then drop my hand back to this high single position where my elbow's deep, locked in the gable grip, head's up into the armpit, then I can drive in and finish on my feet. Again, you can have different ways to get your underhooks. If you're interested in more underhook series, look up Iron Faith underhooks, and there's a whole video on all my underhooks. Post, club, underhook, hand flat in the back, elbow comes up. I like to bring my tricep to my lat so there's not a lot of space here. And then I'm gonna take a big step in with my forward foot, punch the weight towards his opposite leg as my right hand goes to the knee. Here, drop back, drive in, finish there. Show you guys a couple different angles of this. Post, club, underhook. My right leg, look, it takes a big step, and I'm punching this arm across his back. Here, then drop it back. Drive in, little trip, cover on top. One more time. Good stance, post, club, underhook, circle hip to hip, throw. Look at that, elbow behind the knee. Driving in, control, and finish. Russian tie. Again, if you want to learn more about the Russian tie, I just made a video on Russian tie. You can also just search Iron Faith Russian tie series and you'll get that. But I'm here with my Russian tie. My favorite way to get a high single with a Russian tie is setting it up with an outside foot sweep. I'm not necessarily doing a foot sweep, more doing like a trip. But once I'm here, I'm gonna take my leg that's closer to him and hook it behind his shoe. As I hook it behind his shoe, I'm gonna take the hand that's closer to the armpit, drive into him to put as much weight on that leg. I want to make this leg light, easy to pick up. So my goal is to shift all the weight onto the opposite foot so this leg becomes light. So when I hook the ankle and he tries to step out, that makes it light and pushing makes it light. So both the action of pushing the Russian into him and him trying to step out of that foot hook makes that leg light and easy to grab. Now I like grabbing the leg with the hand that has the wrist first. So I'm here, I hook, I push in, and this right hand goes to the leg first. Quickly, my hand that's in the armpit drops, and I lift the leg up, and I finish with a trip and cover on top. Again, I get my Russian tie, pull it in. I'm just hooking my foot behind, pushing in with the hand that's in the armpit as my right hand drops and collects that single. Okay? One more. I'll go from the opposite side here. We're here. Hook, push in with the right arm, drop down, collect, trip, cover around the waist. Another really great setup for the high single is from re-attacks or snap downs. Anytime I can get my opponent below me here, great attack to do is a high single. Anytime you don't have to hit your knees, you want to avoid it. Because the reality is when you're hitting shots, your number one finish is getting to your feet. So if you don't have to hit your knee in the first place, that's why the high single is such an awesome technique. So maybe I snap him or he shoots and I'm in this position here. All I'm going to do is I like to pull his body away from the side I'm going to. So for example, if I'm going to this leg, I take my hands, I pull the opposite direction and step. So I want to avoid him from facing me, circling and facing me. So I'm going to pull his upper body away from me as I step closer to the leg. At that point, my hand that is closer to that leg will grab the back of his hamstring. So I'm here, I'm coming here. And I like to kind of stay on top of him actually. Unless I'm going to a high crotch, I'll be more on the outside here. But if I'm going to a high single, I'm going to keep my chest over top of his back here. Now, as I continue to circle right, the other hand will drop to the single so two hands can lock. So I'll continue to circle behind and get to my high single position. Back elbow deep. It's slightly shelved on my forward leg, heads up into the armpit, just like this. And it could happen from an attack. So he could step and I could be here. And then as he's coming up, I just pick a side, I push just like that. Boom. And as quick as possible, grabbing the leg. Okay, I'll continue to circle, drop to the high single. Again, we don't walk backwards with the single, but if I have to bring him back in bounds, I will. Lift, trip, and cover. Now, we're gonna go more into the head outside single in a second, but this is one of the best ways to get to the head outside. Because when you're over top and you drop here, sometimes it feels a little weird to continue to circle, or not weird, it's slow to continue to circle and drop to here. It's faster to go like this and end up in a head outside high single. So I really like that setup for my head outside. I'm gonna show you guys two more setups. Next one I'm gonna show you guys is clearing a thumb block. This was my top 3 attacks in college when I wrestled. I did hit my knee most of the time, but this shot can be done without hitting your knee. One of my favorite tie-ups was a lead hand collar tie. I know most people are against lead hand collar ties. I felt comfortable there though. So post, club with my lead hand. Now, my opponent would over tie and thumb block on me. This is a very common situation I would get into. Now, what I'm gonna do is I build up some pressure. I always like to have pressure. The reason why I like to have pressure is because I know once I clear the tie-up, he's gonna fall into me. And I want him to fall into me so I can catch that leg. So I'm here, we've built up a little bit of pressure. I'm going to step backwards to make this clearing of the thumb block easier, and my free hand is gonna chop this off. Okay, so I'm here, we've built pressure up, I'm gonna shuffle backwards, free hand goes right where the wrist is, and I'm snapping with both hands and squatting down, ready to snatch my high single. Immediately, my hands lock around the knee. I drive in as I pull the leg into my chest, and I can work on my finish just like that. Show a different angle of this. My opponent thumb blocks me. I'm here. I'm gonna step back, clear, and look at how my positioning is a little bit upright. I'm not going like this. My position is here so my head can hit into his chest and I can get his upper body off of me. If my head's down, his upper body can lay on me, and that's very difficult to score from. So one more time, I post club, he's thumb blocking me, I go here, reach in, drive in, lift up high, little trip, cover on top. One more, I think. Elbow pass. Last one we can do is an elbow pass. This is another common one for the head outside, which I'll show after the head inside single. But my opponent collar ties me. I grab elbow control, thumb goes into the elbow joint, my hands wrap around the tricep. I like to build up pressure with a thumb block on the opposite side. This hand here, thumb blocking. Once he pushes back, I'm gonna shuffle into the arm that's on my neck. I'm gonna pass it off, and I'm gonna look to grab the forward leg. So I shuffle, my head turns into him, I pass it off, look to grab with my free hand, my attack hand. Once I grab the hand that's on the tricep, let goes, and I continue to drive in as I can finish my high single. Again, my partner's got a collar tie, thumb goes into the elbow joint, wrap around the tricep. I build some pressure. I shuffle in. Shuffle into the arm. I lower my level. I pass it off and collect my high single just like that. One more time from a different angle. Thumb over top of the elbow joint, wrap my hand, build some pressure up, shuffle in, pass it off, collect it, drive in, lift, trip, cover. Now I want to move on to the head outside single or high single. I'm just going to revisit 3 setups that we already went over. Or 1 setup that we didn't go over, and then 2 setups we already did. Aaron Pico's, he's an MMA fighter right now, but his best shot is a head outside step, high single. And he is a lightweight. He was like, maybe 140 or something like that. One of the best wrestlers, high school wrestlers ever. So his number 1 setup was this. He was a lefty, but I'll show it from righty. He would club with his backhand. He would step his outside leg or back leg forward and grab the knee. So this is kind of what would happen. He was in a stance. He would club. His opponent would reach up with that lead hand, and he would go here. Sometimes he would hit his knee if the guy was low, but if he didn't have to, he would go club. As they reached up, his outside leg stepped forward, and he went here. Head up, butt low, and then quickly backhand punches deep, and he's in a position to finish high crotch double. He could just turn and take the person's back as well. Go watch some Aaron Pico highlights. You'll see this is his number 1 attack. He's getting some motion from the open. He clubs and just steps as they reach right up. Head up, back elbow goes deep, and it's not low. I'm not grabbing, my left hand does not grab the knee. My left hand goes up high in the thigh, and I attack his hips. This is a common mistake people do. Left hand's way too low. You need to be up in the hips so I can lift and finish. Show you guys a couple different angles of that. Maybe from like here. So I'm here, watch this hand as it comes up. So I club and drop right there. This is way too much space. I'd be more here, but I want to just show you that little movement here. All right, shoulder tight, head up, finish through there. One more angle, we'll go from here. So I'm clubbing, and I'm dropping there. Shoulder tight, switch hands, run them down. Now, like I said earlier, another really great setup for the head outside high single is off of these re-attacks or snap downs. Maybe I just snap my opponent a little bit underneath me. I'm here and I'm just hustling, right? Hustle. As he pops up, I'm right in on this shot here. You know, I can finish double, I can crotch lift, I can sit him. A lot of different finishes from there. One more time. Actually, I'll do a couple more times from here. So maybe he especially these heavyweights, right? If somebody tries to hit a high single on me, it's a lot of times to battle these high singles. He steps in, I'm here. I'm in this re-attack position. I push away, step, and just pull myself right in, just like this. I can also, if I want to, back out to a single, outside finish with a single on my feet here. How we finish this in general, free hand clubs him in the head, and my inside leg trips. Okay. Actually we'll do one more from here. So this time I'll snap. I could snap a little bit, hustle, turn this way a little bit, snap, look, pull, step. Shoulder is gonna go super tight in that hip. Boom, here. Now we're in a position where we can score. If he's leaning on me, so he's bending on me here, I sit him. So hand drops to the calf, and I sit him to his butt here. I don't fall if possible. If I fall with him, it can create a scramble. I like him to fall and me to stay upright just like that. Last one is that elbow pass we did. So my partner has a collar tie, thumb, wrap around the tricep, I build some pressure up, I shuffle and just come right into that head outside position. Now I just wanna go over some of the finishes here real quick. I've touched on a little bit of it, but this is kind of the series you do from here. If you go to my high crotch video, it will show you more in depth. So Iron Faith high crotch, it will show you more in depth these finishes, but in general it's this. I punch deep, go double. If he's blocking my elbow, I sit him to his butt and then go back to a crotch lift, okay? So that's the general idea. It's like, there's three main finishes, I believe. Switch to double, crotch lift, and sit him to his butt, okay? There's a couple other ones that may play out. For example, if I'm here and I go double and he gets an underhook, I can shift my hand that's in the underhook up to his neck and kind of knee pick him over top. So that's another, I wouldn't say super common. The three main ones though are switch to double, sit him down to his butt, or crotch lift in the air and just put him on his back, okay? Sitting them or running the pipe or sitting them down to their butt is a great finish, especially if someone is defending a shot, kind of like this, ready? This is not good, but it's common. They lean their chest over top and just like this should never happen. This is not a good defense, but people try to do this. And when I have somebody who leans over top me, whether my head's on the inside or outside, say I'm here, it's very easy finish. When my head's the inside like this, the leg that's behind just steps back, my grip slides down to his calf, and I pull him in between my leg. Again, I don't wanna fall with him because it will create a scramble. I wanna stay up and just be in a controlled position here, ready to finish that takedown. That kind of touches on the finishes a little bit. Again, if you wanna see more finishes, I've done so many videos on finishes. There's a whole video on single leg finishes, whole video on high crotch or head outside finishes. But I really recommend if you're a heavyweight or maybe you're an athlete and your knees are bothering you, or I would say I've gotten more lazy, I don't wanna work through a tough takedown, these high singles are killer. They work really well. Yeah, that's all I got. So share this with a heavyweight or someone who could use some high single help, and comment below what you guys want to see next.